Howdy all, Dawson with Defender Tactical. Today we're going to be doing an updated installation video for our Highball front bead replacement sight for Mossberg shotguns. We initially had this combined in an installation video with our safety sight, but we decided that it warranted having its own video done for one big reason that I'll explain here in a little bit. But real quick, let's get this thing out of the package, talk about it, and then we'll move on with the installation. So as I mentioned, Highball is a traditional front bead sight replacement for these Mossberg shotguns. One thing that we hear all the time, particularly from newer Mossberg owners, is that their shotgun seems to shoot high. That's actually because the factory bead sits below the top of the receiver here. So in order to acquire your bead and your target, you actually have to raise the tip of your barrel up just a little bit, and that in turn causes a lot of people to shoot high. So what we've done with Highball is we have raised the ball up to give you perfect line of sight right down your receiver. We've also increased the diameter of the ball just to make it easier to acquire, increase its visibility quite a bit. It's machined from solid marine brass and is passivated for extra corrosion resistance, so it has a lifetime of service ahead of it. So pretty simple installation here. We're going to go ahead and hop into it. First things first, we will check to be sure that our firearm is clear and that we are safe to work on it. Now in terms of tools, you're going to need something to remove the factory bead and secure the new bead as well. So here I have a deep socket. The actual socket dimension is 5/32. If you don't have a 5/32 socket like I do actually right now, I'm using a 4mm. That should work just fine. You can go pick one of these up at Home Depot or Amazon for $6 or $7, something like that. You could also maybe use a small crescent wrench or something similar, but you just want to be careful not to scratch your barrel up or anything. As you can see, we have some tape wrapped around this bottom surface of this socket right here to protect our finish. You're going to want some medium strength Loctite, or the blue Loctite. I know the bottle's red, but make sure you get the blue stuff. Medium strength should do you just fine. And then the only other thing that you may need is just a little bit of sandpaper, and I'll talk about why here in just a little bit. You may not need this, but if you can get some 150 to 220 grit, that'd be great. I've got some 220 grit here today, but we'll talk about that here in just a second. All right, so with whatever tool you're deciding to use, you can go ahead and remove the factory bead. There's not many threads on it, so it should not be very difficult to get out. Here it is. I'll do a size comparison really quickly of the factory bead on the left and our Highball there on the right. So one thing before we put the Loctite on this new bead and screw it back in, what you're going to want to do is double check that your firearm is clear, and then you can thread the new bead in and go ahead and check to be sure if you have any protrusion. These threads were designed to fit best on the Shockwave. The threads barely hold in on this factory bead. It's recessed quite a bit up into the barrel. So we've designed this to be optimized for the Shockwave, and so it should sit flush on the inside of most barrels. However, we have had a couple reports on maybe a longer barreled Maverick 88 or something like that, where the barrel may be just a little bit thinner down here at the end. It protrudes just a little bit, so if that's something that worries you, we recommend checking for that. If it is protruding, you can take your bead back out, grab some 150 to 220 grit sandpaper like I mentioned, and you can actually just file a little bit off the bottom here. File would work as well if you don't have access to sandpaper. But what you want to do, I'll show you the technique really quickly. Just hold the bead as straight up and down as you possibly can. Go back and forth, left and right, and then make some circular motions. And you only want to take off a little at a time. It really doesn't take much. You shouldn't need to sand this down for more than 30 or 45 seconds if you even need to at all. And as you go, you can put it back in and check it and see that you are flush. And then we can move on with the Loctite. So to apply my Loctite here, I've just got the end of a wooden tip cotton swab, or wood handled cotton swab, and I'm just going to put a little bit of this Loctite on the end of it, and then take that drop and just touch it to the threads and let whatever can wick on there. Maybe dab off a little bit of the extra. You really do not need a whole lot, just to where it's inside of the threads. You don't really need it flowing out of them. And then you can screw your bead in for the final time and tighten it down. Just go hand tight, and then torque it down just a little bit with whatever tool you've decided to use. The brass is designed to be the sacrificial piece, so if you do end up getting it too tight, you shouldn't damage your barrel. The bead should be the only thing that has the threads affected. So yeah, guys, that is pretty much it. That covers all the steps and considerations. I really hope y'all found this helpful. Thanks for watching.